Welcome to episode number 319 of Destination Linux. Destination Linux is a video podcast from the Tux Digital Network. If you're new to the show, Destination Linux is a podcast perfect for all experience levels. Whether you're brand new to open source or a guru of sudo, this is the podcast for you. My name is Jill.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Michael.
And on this week's awesome episode of Destination Linux, we will be discussing Tor and Mullvad teaming up to bring you a new privacy-oriented browser. Then we take a look at two new contenders for your next laptop from Tuxedo Computers and System 76. Plus, we have our tips, tricks, and software picks. All this and more coming up right now on Destination Linux to keep those penguins marching.
So this week's feedback comes from Gene, and if you want to send in your own feedback, you can go to tuxdigital.com/contact to get in touch and send us an email or join our forum. We're also on Discord, and I set up, Michael, a couple more Discords out there. We got a fitness Discord. We have a Minecraft Discord because I set up our Minecraft server for our patrons to come hang out on and get that set up. There's lots of cool things out there on Discord to check out. So come game, hang out with the community, chat about Linux. But
you need Michael, that fitness win where you noodle arms.
No, that's really
got him. Got him.
Thumbs.
Got him.
But me and Michael aren't the only ones who are going to be upset right now. You know why? Because
what?
We got an upset listener, Michael. You're not supposed to laugh, Michael. We have an upset listener.
Oh, sorry.
Jeez.
What did they say? Why are they upset?
Well, Gene is upset and I want to mention to Gene before we get into this that it was a very lengthy email, as tends to happen when people are not happy with something that goes on the show. So I can't read the whole email. So I've edited it. I think I kept all your main points in there. If I didn't, then you could join our forum and talk to people there about it. But Gene goes on to say, DL310 was the very first time since I started to listen to your show. You claimed to be talking about Web3, but actually conflated decentralized services and small web concepts with it. And he goes on to say they did not feel covered it well, and we conflated it with other decentralized services. And they're in no way defending Web3. In their own words, it's mostly laughable in its current incarnation and based around ideas that are mostly impractical or totally undesirable. Well, that we can agree with. I think our show actually agreed with
we said that
stuff you said there. I'm also not saying that Mastodon and PeerTube and the rest of the Fediverse are perfect or even great yet, but it's not as bad as you all make it out to be, and it's a parallel thing to Web3, not the same thing or part of it. I've got no problem with the flaws of Mastodon, but do think that when doing so, it should be done in proper context. One such context in particular comes with comparing them to services from Google and Meta. Those are well-established and battle-tested platforms, yet they didn't start out perfectly either. Centralized does make something we like easier. Hold your thoughts, Michael.
Okay.
Let Gene finish.
I'm sorry, Gene.
Centralization does make some things we like easier, but it also facilitates all the privacy invasive stuff we don't like. I agree with that, and I think we talked about some of that. It also facilitates glorious individuals such as Elon Musk buying and messing up platforms. The last thing I want to bring up is the notable difference between Bitcoin and all the altcoin variants. Bitcoin avoids most of the problems that other forms of crypto have. I do believe it and the Lightning Network provide a very useful way for creators and consumers to exchange value. Gene goes on to mention some of the new exciting technologies underway and hopes we research things more thoroughly next time. Michael, I've got a lot to say on all of this, but I'm going to let you go first.
Right.
Go ahead. I
appreciate that. So first of all, I wanted to say, based on my initial reaction to the comment about Google and Meta or Facebook having pre-established, battle-tested platforms, but when they started out and they weren't perfect either, yes, but they also weren't competing with anything, really, unless you count Friendster. And no one was counting that. Mm-hmm. So now when you create a platform, you are competing with existing established things. So you are going to be compared to those things because they already exist. So yes, they weren't perfect in the beginning, but they had, now you have to deal with just the comparison. There's no other option for that.
This is an interesting argument too, because it's like if a car company comes out and let's say they just release a car without wheels. And then you're like, well, listen, they're just starting out. When the first car came out, it may not have wheels either. it's kind of like, I get their argument, and I know that is a complete exaggerated form of the argument, but in some ways it's kind of like, once something's out and established, you can't go all the way backwards and be like, well, I'm releasing a car that you crank again to start it, because you're like, well, it took, the other car companies 20 years before they figured out the electrical switch ignition. Like, there are certain standards that become set, and if we're going to say these platforms are going to compete with them, then we at least have to have the basics covered. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of really interesting things about Mastodon. I know that wasn't the main point of your email about these other, federated services and things, but it talks about when Twitter and the Elon fiasco happened, there were like 300,000 or more people who migrated to Mastodon. Like, it went so big, they had trouble, and they did funding and things to get the servers up to handle all of these people. And some big celebrities, George Takei, all of these things. What happened since then is the server traffic has completely fallen off, right? It's not, they're still higher than it was, but it's down by like 250,000 or something like that. And don't quote me on the numbers, but it's big, it's massive. They've lost over half of the people who came over there. So you had this event that took place in which, if this platform was better, then people would have stayed. And people like George Takei was really interested in Mastodon. He was talking about how some of the cool things of it. But it was missing the one thing that in a social network is the most important thing of a social network: discoverability.
The socialization
Discoverability,
part.
easy to search.
And being able to socialize with people. So if you don't have that done well, then what you have is a platform of which only people who directly know to look for you are going to see you. And it's the same thing with YouTube. When people tell us, well, go to these other services that aren't YouTube. And we're like, but you can't make any money off of them. And that's why you'll never attract people who do gigantic YouTube channels to do anything else but maybe put their videos on there also. But they're not going to make that thing primary, because the big draw is the creators. The big draw on a social media network is the influencers. Whether we like those terms or not, it's just the reality. And if you can't have ability for them to actually draw an audience that's outside of the people who just specifically are looking for them, then the experiment is kind of failed. And that, again, is like an ignition in a car for a new car company, starting a new car company, saying, well, give us some time and we'll get that ignition working. No, I agree. Over time, these things can be fixed. But in the examples we gave, these companies have, and certain people involved in them have stated they don't want to fix the problem of discoverability. So that's fine, but then you have to realize that this thing, that's their right, but this thing's never going to be, and maybe we don't want it to be, a competition where massive people are going to move to it. And so if you understand those things, then you kind of get our argument. I'm not saying Mastodon has to become and replace Twitter. It doesn't. But a lot of people thought it could, and it would. And a lot of people's expectations weren't met because of that. And that's why we talk about big adoption and moving forward with these concepts, which I absolutely love for the privacy and security aspect of them. They're not going to take off if you're not going to make them better in some form or fashion than what's out there. And the only thing you can claim is, well, it's more free or it's more private. And I wish people cared about that stuff more en masse. But the reality is they don't.
And that's not, we're not, this is not a topic about Mastodon necessarily, but this is just another example of, certain things are setting expectations where you might not know that they are doing that because of what they're in, what space that they're in. But I had a question based on this email, because I read the email in full and I couldn't find where we got the explanation of what Web3 was. I know they said that we didn't explain it properly, but I didn't see an explanation at all. So what's Web3 then?
That's the thing that everybody really wants to know. And the reality, the answer, if we're being truthful, is that nobody really knows what Web3 is going to be. There are facets and things that are Web3 or are considered Web3. But what's that thing that's going to take off? What's that thing that the infusion of $30 billion of Web3 projects out there is actually going to take off and be the Web3? Nobody can really say. And in fact, most articles, if you go and do your research and ask what is Web3, you're going to find they start out with something like, yes, it's very confusing. There's a lot of different elements and potentials behind this, But I think it's a good point, Michael, that, even in the email, there was no explanation of what is it that we should have said to encapsulate all of Web3. And the answer is that no matter what you say into that, there's always somebody who's going to think it's something slightly different or a variation of that, because Web3 could be many different things out there. There's no standard definition.
Even the creators of the World Wide Web don't even know what it is. Tim Berners-Lee. I mean, he has some ideas, but
yeah.
And we think it's going to be, hoping it's going to be more privacy driven and containerized.
I mean, in the concept that we discussed in the show is Web3 is about really putting the web back into the control of the individuals, your information and things like that.
Yeah.
But the things in the implementation, the many different implementations of it, nothing's had a major breakthrough. Yeah, there are breakthroughs, as in things have gotten semi-popular, but nothing that's kind of taken over by storm. And when I say that, I say things like ChatGPT or Facebook when it launched, or Google or other things where they really, really blew up. In my mind, when you look at these technologies, I think you mentioned crypto as well, and you started talking about Bitcoin and other things in there. And you've got just a really interesting place in which, once again, when we talk about technologies replacing others, I was a big crypto person. I've invested in it. I made lots of money in it. It's very cyberpunk. I think it's cool. I love the mission behind it. But I also pulled out immediately out of all of crypto stuff when Elon made a tweet and crashed the entire thing, because I thought, what kind of system that's supposed to be decentralized from everything else going on can be crashed from a tweet? And so at this point, I realized that this thing that's supposed to be better is in fact kind of the same, because the same thing happens in the stock market. And I know a lot of crypto people will say, when you talk about the unbelievable amount of theft, stealing, people losing their savings and all this, that this happens with the fiscal money as well. Like, you guys are making fun of crypto for this, but this happens in fiscal. But isn't the point of crypto that we're supposed to have something better? Not the same bad that we have there? Because, I mean, it's a fair point they make. Like, hey, this other thing has lots of theft and people use it for bad, nefarious purposes too. But I thought crypto was supposed to be the thing that was going to change all of that. And so am I saying crypto is not going to work? Or if you love crypto, don't be in crypto? No. I'm just saying in its current iterations, this is a situation in which we don't, again, have something that, in my mind, is actually better than the current fiscal system, because I think crypto is heavily manipulated. People have lost tons of money on it. Big businesses have completely infused it with lots of scams and things that have been all over the news, which is the exact same problem we're trying to get away from. So
yeah,
I don't know, Gene. I think you bring up a lot of points that are very interesting.
Yeah, really good.
And I do appreciate your email. And
oh, absolutely. And thank you for watching the show.
Web3 and I think crypto and all these things are fascinating. It's my opinion that I'm going to kind of sit on the sideline. I'm going to play with every new thing that comes out and check it out. But that doesn't mean I'm going to invest, my finances, nor would I ever ask at this moment for any of our listeners or patrons or anybody else to invest their money into crypto and then send it to us and those other things, because I just don't trust it enough. And I would be terrified at the idea if somebody came to me and said, oh, we were sending you crypto for your show to support it, and then I moved my money and linked it and I got all my stuff stolen. Like, I don't want to be involved in that yet till this stuff's figured out. So that's why we as a podcast and stuff haven't really pushed those things. Now, I don't think anybody doing it is bad. That's just Ryan's opinion on why we're not pushing that type of stuff. But I hope Web3 takes off. I love the idea of owning my data and stuff more.
Absolutely. And now that we have Chat GPT and other Chat AI thrown in, I think it's going to be very different than what we're thinking of it now.
What Web3 will be
oh,
very
yeah.
different.
That's a good point. That's probably going to change drastically what it's going to be. But also to go back really quick with the crypto thing, we know that blockchain and crypto are not the same thing, and blockchain's a really cool technology.
Totally.
This is just a thing that people are, there's the thing about Web3 is that it's so complicated because all of these different pieces are associated as being Web3, and no one knows what they are. So it's just like this weird, it feels like a convoluted topic, and that's because it kind of is.
Well, you brought that up. I just want to clarify that he specifically mentioned Bitcoin and specifically mentioned altcoin variants, and Bitcoin is a more secure version,
sure.
which in the world of crypto, I agree, by the way. I think Bitcoin, all these altcoins and things are far more dangerous, but so are all of the markets and things out there that are selling these coins and stuff have a lot of danger. But you made a really good point there that I want to clarify too, Michael, that the blockchain is a completely different concept that can be used for amazing purposes out there. And I think it will be a part of Web3 in a big way. I think a lot of these things will evolve over time. I just don't think it's ready to be getting everybody in the world excited about yet. But Jill, your point about the AI stuff, I mean, if you want to talk about the next version of the web that's going to take everything over, I think Web 3 has already arrived with the AI piece. As far as Web 3.0, not saying the Web 3 that we were just discussing, but if you're talking about the next evolution of what the web's going to be, AI is going to be the part of it that's going to take the world by storm. And you know why, Michael? Because it's easy, it's simple. You log in, you do your searches, it gives you the results.
Yes.
There's none of this confusion for the masses. Like us geeks, we can figure out all this Lightning Network and everything else out. And we love that stuff. But for the mass population, mass adoption, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. But things like ChatGPT, they didn't make you have to code AI to use it. It's just a simple URL prompt.
Honestly, the conversation we had last time about Web3 was specifically about how the expectation of Web3 was not going to work because of all of the stuff you had to learn. And the reason Web 2.0 was successful is because the massive mainstream didn't have to do anything in order to utilize it. And the amount of people who are comfortable, who just play with ChatGPT and all these AI things, who are not really techie person, they're just people who heard about it, wanted to play with it, and found out how they could do it, and it's so simple to do. I think that is pretty much fair play to say, Web3 is probably going to be AI related, or maybe it already is because so many people have already adopted because they don't have to worry about learning all the different things. They can just get in and start playing with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's also something that is awesome and provides a lot of potential for people to just quickly get started and set up and enjoy the fantastic functionality that it offers?
My Minecraft server would be one of those things. But you know what that Minecraft server runs off of to turn your question into another question?
Oh, what's that?
Linode.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad you were going the same place I was. So Linode is an awesome platform that allows you to be able to use any kind of system, whether you want to set up a Minecraft server or you want to set up your own website. You can do all of this stuff on Linode, and you can get started by going to linode.com/tux. That's linode.com/TUX, and see why over 1 million developers trust Linode for their infrastructure. Linode provides solutions and services to accelerate innovation, whether you want to build everything yourself and just put the different pieces together on their servers, or you want to use their one-click apps that you can use from their app marketplace. Like I said, you can get a WordPress system, a Minecraft system. Also, you can even set up your own VPN because they have VPN-friendly servers. So you can go there to create secure connections over the internet to protect you on public Wi-Fi, because if you are using the internet on public Wi-Fi, you should have some level of protection on there, like a VPN, because you never know what's there. And if you ever connect to an open Wi-Fi, you should be on a VPN. And if that wasn't enough, though, but Linode has all these great features, all of these great services, and every plan comes with this thing that they refer to as human-powered support. You might be wondering, what does human-powered mean? Well, it means that humans are involved. And it's not just a chat system. It's not just a robot that's responding to you with these canned messages that are never helpful. And then you constantly trying to get past the canned messages so you can finally get to a human. Whereas in Linode, you just ask a single time and then boom, a human responds. Isn't that like a crazy idea? I mean, so
imagine that.
Innovative.
Real customer service.
Right. Innovative is crazy. So visit linode.com/tux to create your free account. That's right. You can start it for free, and you get a $100 60-day free credit when you go to linode.com/tux. So go right now to get started with their awesome cloud platform at linode.com/TUX.
So speaking of security, Michael, I have to admit that when I saw this news come out, I thought it was an April Fool's joke. And I have to say, I thought it was an April Fool's joke because it came around that time, and I hate this time because I hate this time specifically for companies who try to release things during this time.
Yes, they should
you never
know
know, like, is this fake? Like, it was such good news out there in the privacy world, in my opinion.
Before we get to that, I just want to say one thing. As a marketing person, there's a very strict rule that most marketers adhere to. You do not release anything on April 1st or March 31st if you are serious. Like if it's a thing that you actually want people to know about, you either do it on the 30th or you do it on the 2nd. And the reason you don't do it on the 31st is because of time zones. Some people might already be in April 1st. So,
well, it's more than that. People will do these jokes now. Like, you know how like Christmas, people start celebrating 3 months early now, or the stores at least start playing the music and changing their stuff. But people start doing April Fools, like leading up to April Fools, and sometimes like days after. So now, like any time around there, just stay away from it. But this wasn't an April Fool's joke. The GNOME KDE partnership was one of the April Fool's jokes, by the way, that I really remember when they were going to merge their desktops.
That's exactly the type of problem is when people do April Fool's jokes that people want to happen. Like when it's like just joking, like, oh no.
But this is not a joke. This is good because this was Mullvad VPN and Tor deciding to team up. I mean, it had all of the context of that GNOME KDE partnership. So I was like, I don't know. Let me go on their actual site and see. Let me check again a few days later and make sure this is really happening. Let me download it and make sure it doesn't come up with a picture that says April Fools. None of that happened, thankfully. This is a real thing. Mullvad VPN and Tor teaming up to create their own browser. The new browser will be called Mullvad Browser, which will be a browser built by Tor project team, but distributed by Mullvad, and it's based on Mozilla Firefox 102.9.0 ESR. And both of these companies are two of my favorite companies in the world, and they're known for focus on privacy and data protection. In fact, we've talked about the video that I did that's very popular about VPNs, and I compared all of the different VPNs and all their features. And one of the VPNs that came out at the very tippity top was Mullvad. It's one of the best VPNs out there when you look at privacy and security and not keeping logs and just having amazing track record. And Tor, I mean, do I really need to go into Tor and why it's one of the most amazing privacy projects in existence today? It's just one of the essential things for journalists or people in countries that are worried about their government being able to intercept their messages or talking to people or what they're browsing on. Tor does amazing things by being able to set up jumps and hops all through a bunch of different servers to protect your privacy and things out there. So these two teaming up, forget about it. This is awesome. So I had to download this immediately.
It's very interesting. But I think the most interesting thing about it is that in the article at Tor, when they announced this team up, they talked about how they are creating this browser, but it's not including the Tor network.
That's very true. They're not going to include the Tor network. And what I think is really interesting about this is there's kind of two different lanes here currently before this came in. You've got the people who use Tor, but Tor is what it is. It creates so much privacy and it's hopping your traffic around and it can be really slow. In fact, you really shouldn't be utilizing it for massive downloads and things like that because it's just putting a massive strain on the Tor network overall for people who are utilizing it for other things. So there's then the people who utilize just a VPN, but they're using like a Chrome browser or something, and you've got all the fingerprinting and other things that go on along with that. And so to me, this is that middle ground where we're making things really easy for people who don't have the time to be or need even to have that super ultra privacy of Tor and have their traffic bouncing around a bunch of different locations. But they still don't want to be fingerprinted. They don't want all of these cookies sitting on their machine, tracking everything that they're doing. They want all of the basic layers of privacy in there, and they want it to integrate with a VPN. Because we know a VPN can add, just like you talked about in the Linode ad, a certain level of additional privacy. It basically allows it so that your traffic's encrypted and your ISP and things aren't going to be able to see what you're doing on there. And even if a hacker is able to be a middleman attack, for instance, and you're on a VPN, all they're going to see is a bunch of scrambled encrypted garbage. And that's one of the advantages and why we always tell people if you're traveling in hotels, you're on airport Wi-Fi, those type of things, where it's very easy for a middleman attack to happen, make sure you're on a VPN. But Mullvad Browser applies a hide-in-the-crowd approach to online privacy by creating a similar fingerprint for all of its users. So fingerprinting is a huge problem right now on the web and one of the main tactics that people are utilizing to get people's data. And so this hide-in-the-crowd approach, I think, is a pretty cool and unique approach. And the out-of-box configurations are geared towards privacy as well. So Mullvad Browser has private mode enabled by default, which blocks third-party trackers, cookies, and makes it easy to delete cookies between visiting pages during the exact same session that you're in there. And there's a bunch of other features as well, but the main thing I want to say is just go check it out and download it. In fact, we all did.
Yeah.
And Jill, what are your thoughts on the Mullvad browser?
Oh my gosh. So my first thought when I launched it, and I had downloaded it on Monday, is how fast it was. It actually feels to me more like a Chrome-based browser than a Firefox one. Albeit, Firefox has gotten a lot quicker, but Chrome still has that a little bit more snap to it. And that's what it felt like to me when I was, searching web pages and whatnot, and even on YouTube. It's easy to download. You just download it, and it's a standard tar, and you can launch it right from the directory. And it does include the uBlock origin and NoScript add-ons, as well as the Mullvad browser extension for using your Mullvad VPN account. And by the way, if you don't have a Mullvad VPN account, the service is only $5 a month, which is one of the reasons why it's our favorite one, but also because it's so secure.
And it's very consistent. Like the price they don't do any changes when they price it.
It's $2.99 for 80 years, but you got to pay for 80 years in advance stuff. They don't do any of that. Yeah.
But also, so it's interesting that they were doing this because this browser is, for the most part, it's basically getting the benefits of the Tor browser without the requirement of using the Tor network. And that was very interesting because like the uBlock origin and NoScript add-ons by default that comes with Tor as well. So the Tor browser has those. And the Tor browser has this identity system where you can switch in and out and clear out your settings or your cookies really fast. And you can also clear out entire sections of how the browser is working. And it's really cool to see that. Plus, with all the other things you could do with it, having the container tabs in conjunction with the identity system, it's a very cool idea. So having the browser built where it's not a requirement of the Tor network, I think that is very interesting. However, there is one thing that I wanted to clarify, something that I noticed. The Mullvad VPN does not come by default. It's not built into the browser. If you want, it has a built-in browser extension, but that extension is just testing whether or not you're set up on their VPN and if you can use the proxy. So you still need to have your system connected to their VPN with their VPN app, and then the browser extension will tell you whether or not you're connected and what servers you're connected to and that sort of stuff. So it's cool that it has functionality to tell whether or not you're connected to the VPN properly, but it still requires you to use their other app to connect.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can install the Mullvad browser extension on any Firefox or Chrome-based browser. So if you do have the service, you don't have to use the Mullvad browser.
Yeah,
true. Yep.
That is interesting, but it is worth noting that if you want to get the extension, you have to do it through their website, not through the Firefox add-ons marketplace thing.
Yeah,
because it's currently in a beta right now for the extension. So in order to get that, you need to go to their website. Which, I mean, and the way I look at it is if I'm going to trust them for my VPN, I could probably use their extension just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
No big deal. But I think it's really cool that they're doing it. When I first loaded up the browser, I kind of thought, like, what is the point of this? Because it didn't come with a built-in VPN. And there are a lot of browsers that do have built-in VPNs that are just exclusively for the browser. And I do think, in a way, that's kind of disappointing, but at the same time, it's also good because it's more or less like, here, you should have your VPN not just on your browser, because that's not the best way to do a VPN anyway. So I do think that there's a valid approach to why they didn't do it that way. But I wish that the extension was more like adamant about how to get to the VPN and telling you don't have it connected right by default. And you have to, it'll tell you that you're not on a VPN, but it doesn't tell you like quickly how to get on the VPN. And I wish it was more like, not necessarily in your face, but more like quick to tell you how to solve that problem and send you to the different downloads for your browser, like that sort of stuff.
That's an interesting idea. I think that's a fair point there. And I want to touch on, in case, because we've got a lot of people who are getting into privacy, but maybe not understand, because there is a lot of people pushing to just put the VPN in a browser extension. Like, let's say you download another VPN, a very famous one out there, popular one, and you use their browser extension and you connect to the VPN through the browser extension. Almost all of those type of extensions are just protecting your web browser traffic. and why you want to use the software that you would actually install, Mullvad, NordVPN, whatever it is, on your physical machine and not just utilize it through a browser extension, although it's more convenient in the extension, is because all of your internet traffic from all the software and things becomes going over the VPN if you use the software version that you've installed on your desktop. If you're using the extension, the only thing you're protecting is what you're using in that specific browser right there. And so there's a very important thing for people to kind of recognize and understand. And they're both, I mean, the extension is very useful and you can use that, but just know that the rest of the stuff, if you have other software reaching out with telemetry and all that stuff, that's not going through the VPN there. But I love this team up. In fact, I can't think of a better
Really
team,
awesome.
Michael, than this here. Like
What?
this is Picard and Kirk level. Like they team up
It is,
and
yeah.
go after the Klingons together. This is Galactica and the Enterprise. This is muffins and cupcakes coming
It
together to
sure
make a muff
is.
cake. Muffin
muff cake.
cake. Cup thing.
Delicious.
I would go with cup fins, maybe.
Cup fins.
Cup fins.
Like you can't make a better partnership than Tor and Mullvad together here. It's amazing. And Firefox too, because really without Firefox, you got none of
Oh,
this.
yeah.
In fact, the one complaint I will say, Mullvad, that I have is that you don't really easily express all across the Mullvad browser any thanks or anything to Firefox. And
Yeah.
it's in there in the about, which I appreciate. It says, hey, we're based on Firefox ESR and all of that. But I think they deserve a little bit more of a call out because without that amazing Firefox base, this would be a much more difficult thing to endeavor on.
Yeah, and in fact that the only browser competing with Chrome and Chromium is Firefox, that into any reasonable level, it's more important that we acknowledge the fact that if you make a new cool browser, thank Firefox for existing so you can make that cool browser.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another extension that you need to make sure you always have.
What's that?
Michael, really, do you have to ask? It's
No, of
Bitwarden.
course not. You asked me, but I'm setting you up.
Oh, thanks. This episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by the amazing folks over there at Bitwarden. Get started right now with your free account at bitwarden.com/TUX. I just set somebody up this week on Bitwarden and they could not believe how awesome it was. But here's the thing I couldn't believe, Michael, when I was helping them set stuff up, is they were using the same password for banks, for everything that they had. It was a more complex password, so I'll give them that. That's a step up. But it was the same one across. As soon as I saw it, I was like, listen, let's go to this Bitwarden. Let's get it downloaded on your phone. Let's get it into your browsers. Let's get it everywhere so that you're utilizing this and setting up super complex passwords. Not as complex as Michael sets, because he sets like
I might be
64
excessive.
character passwords.
I might be a little
they're
excessive.
insane.
If they don't have a limit to what that is, the main character's limit is, I'm going to make it a crazy number. But also it's a different number for each one. But here's the reason why I can do that. I use Bitwarden. And I don't have to remember my passwords or care what they are because Bitwarden takes care of it for me.
It remembers it all for you. Password Manager software allows you a peace of mind knowing your online accounts are secure. Bitwarden provides you the tools to store all those passwords in the secured vault Michael was just talking about, auto-generate those passwords and usernames, and even automatically fill them in for you. You can access your data across any type of device, phones, browsers, any type of desktop operating system you want to use. Of course, it's Linux, but any of the others too. Command line, and Bitwarden seals and encrypts your private data with end-to-end encryption before it ever leaves your device, so you're the only person with access to your data. Go to bitwarden.com/tux and get started for free. But you're going to want that $10 premium account. In fact, the person I was talking about volunteered, I'm just going to sign up and pay that. That's so cheap. I can't believe how cheap that is. And I was like, yeah, it's insanely cheap with everything going up in price constantly. And they're still staying at the less than $1 per month. 1 gigabyte encrypted file storage, 2-step with login, YubiKey, U2F, Duo, Vault Health Reports, Bitwarden Authenticator, priority customer support, and so much more. Go to bitwarden.com/tux to get started. I mean it, right now. Type it in your browser now. Bitwarden.com/tux. Thanks to Bitwarden for sponsoring Destination Linux.
So there is a game called Fireball Spam.
I love it.
Fun name. All right.
And this game is actually a simple 2-button, 1-shot, 1-kill fighting game. And taking all of the action of Fireball Wars and other fighting games and upping the stakes with instantaneous death. No D-pad, no X moves, no frills, just jumping with the space bar or on your controller, shoot and win.
I love it.
Interesting.
Very
it is
simple.
a lot of fun. I was playing with the AI robot, and that was really
Did you
really
beat
cool.
the AI robot at any point, Jill?
I did a couple times actually.
Good.
Yes.
See, they say that AI could beat us in like Jeopardy and Go and all of these games, but it can't beat us in Fireball spam.
Not
We
in
still have
Fireball spam.
edge. You know, what I was thinking when I saw this name, Michael, is if you follow all these privacy tips that we give on the show, you're probably going to find yourself in a situation where you kind of miss spam. You know, getting your email spammed, having a bunch of random things spammed.
Literally, you're the only one who has had that thought.
And so instead of bringing that spam back because you miss it and it's nostalgic, you just play Fireball spam. And
yeah.
You know what
spam
I
for
would thought when I
buttons.
first heard about this game's name? I was thinking this is like someone who is playing Street Fighter with Ken or Ryu, and all they ever do is shoot a fireball.
Why are you calling me out? My entire Street Fighter playing life was just spamming with Ryu. And lucky if I could win there. I had no real skill. I just jam on buttons until something. Sometimes I won, sometimes I didn't. Fireball. It was kind of like you had to curve the little joystick and
Hadouken.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, it's just a real simple 16-bit style game with simple controls and very simple characters. But, it's a fun romp in the Spamiverse.
A fun romp in the Spamiverse. Did you take that from them, or did you come up with that, Jill?
No, that was my own.
That's amazing. Romp in the Spamiverse.
And actually, the developers describe it like this: all the joy of Fireball Wars with none of the pesky health in the way. And that's so true. I mean, you got to keep jumping so those fireballs don't get you, or keep throwing the fireballs so some don't get you.
Michael, when you see this game, it's only $1.99. It works on Linux out of the box.
What a deal.
Are you buying it right now?
Probably not.
Why?
That's not a judgment against Fireball spam. This is not to say Fireball spam.
Because you're in the middle of
wrong.
doing a show. That's
I'm doing a show, and also there's no cars with rocket boosters on it.
Oh, that's
or soccer ball.
Oh, that is true. These fireballs are thrown, not.
For those game developers out there that want to try to get Michael to play their game, you've got to have 5-year-old cars dreaming of a car with rockets on the back, and then Michael will play the game. But
yes, it doesn't even have to have a soccer ball in it. There's another game that I was fun that it's similar, but it has rocket boosters on the car. That's all you really need is the rocket booster.
Yes.
Oh, but this one plays on the Steam Deck, which is nice, so you can just pick up and go.
This actually does look like a really fun game to pick up. And for $1.99, you can't really go that wrong. It only has one user review. It might be Jill's. But definitely one of these little fun, corny games to pick up and check out. All right, so our software spotlight is smart receipts. This is a big darn deal. Sometimes we bring in software that's like, hey, we utilize this, but we don't get to utilize it all the time. Maybe it's even something we're spotlighting that's not in our direct industry, but we just think it's cool. But smart receipts is one of those things that's like one of those life-changing apps for me. It's not only helped me in my recent move, which, people watching the video version know I'm still in the process of moving, so I'm not in my final location yet and all of that. But because you got to track things like travel and going to different places, like we went to the big event at scale. And the expenses for the business. And Smart Receipts is a free open source app that lets you scan and organize your receipts on your smartphone. Now, anybody who has to do those reports when you're done traveling for work, listen up. This is the thing that's going to be very life-changing for you, because there's nothing more annoying, at least if you work for a big company like I do, in trying to get all of those receipts captured and save them for your trip, get the paper printouts, and then you've got them in your luggage. And then, of course, you always lose one receipt, and then you have to do a special exception report on that. All this kind of nonsense can be avoided with this one simple app. App provides advanced optional character recognition technology, extracts key data from your receipts, such as date, merchant name, and total amount spent, plus gives you the picture of the actual receipt itself. and allows you to export it in the PDF format or CSV format, allows you to categorize your receipts based on all of your different trips or put them in different folders and things for your different expenses. So I was traveling for the Scale convention, and then the next week I traveled for work, and I had 2 completely different loads of receipts that I had to keep and expense, but I was able to do that easily.
Very
Smart
cool.
Receipts, which I absolutely love. It's available for both Android and iOS, and they make it accessible to a wide range of users. And the app is regularly updated with bug fixes, and it's just a really cool service. And the Pro version lets you back up to cloud services in case you accidentally get your phone stolen or lose your phone or things. That could be really important as well. But I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of this Smart Receipts. Use it all the time.
In fact, Ryan
this is
convinced
awesome.
me to start using Smart Receipts when we were at Scale, because he told me about how he was going to have it organized that way. So I thought, okay, let's check this out. And then I set it up and started doing the organization for Scale receipts, and was like, oh, wow, this is so much better than having to like remember which one was which, and just having it automatically. And the tip of the week this week is related to Smart Receipts. So we're going to get that into a second. But before we get to that, Ryan said there's nothing more annoying than keeping track of receipts. And I have to argue with that, because I do a show with Ryan, and that's pretty annoying.
Yeah, but not more annoying than keeping track of the receipts. I mean, it's close, but I still think the receipts is more annoying.
Okay, that might be a little. It can be sometimes when you forget to do it, and you have to go back and have like a whole shoebox.
How much
full
money
of
have you
receipts.
left on the table, Michael, because you forgot about a receipt?
That's a good question. It's a good question, but.
Yeah, what's really cool is last year's Scale, I had to send Ryan the receipts, snail mail the receipts to you. And now we just have this awesome option that, works
Makes it so
today.
much easier.
Yeah.
And we can export it. Like Michael needed a copy for some of the things of some of my receipts, and I can just export it and send it to him. And he's got the receipts, the picture of the receipts, what they were for. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yep, it's a fantastic experience. And also, I mean, there are some things that I wish it had that it doesn't, but that's also just because I want it to be perfect
You're one
for
of those
me.
people that are just whining.
I'm just whining. Yeah.
Imagine me having to put up with Michael and his whininess all the time.
See,
Give us
this
our
is
tips and tricks.
This
Michael.
is why
You're
it's
whining
so
too
annoying to do a show with Ryan people. You get it.
Yeah. And because of
I like how Jill agreed with it's like, it is annoying. Isn't it?
Yeah, Ryan, and because of you and Michael, I'm going to start using Smart Receipts myself, just on my personal account, because I am so careful. I mean, I still don't do online banking. I still like to go to the bank, and I like to get the receipts, and then they just, over time, they just pile up. And this way I don't have to pile up, and I can save the paper.
Jill, when you want to make a deposit in the bank, do you hand them a floppy disk with a file on it that tells them how much money you're wanting to move between what account? Because that would be really secure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, going to the bank, it's an excuse to go for my daily walk. So that's how I look at it.
Jill still does her taxes on a Commodore 64.
She has a typewriter for her taxes. But
Actually, I still do have a typewriter.
Of course you do, Jill. But so let's move on to the tip of the week, which is still related to Smart Receipts because it's that cool. It's tax season, and you may be really interested in checking out some kind of software for your taxes because, everybody loves taxes. Am I right? No one.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
No.
So it's also important to, have some sort of software for your receipts. Going forward next year, it's going to be a lot easier because right now, if you're not using some kind of app, you're going to want to start doing it. But previously, I was one of those people where I was not using an app. I was using this
His
really
memory, which is terrible.
No, I was never using my memory.
You were. There were so many times where you would make a business expense purchase and forget to expense it because your memory is terrible. But
Okay,
now,
that is true.
You can
That
take a
is true.
picture
I would
of it
forget to expense it.
Put it in Smart Receipts.
Yes, but still remembering to
Very
expense
nice.
it is a different topic. But what I would do with my receipts is I'd have this box, and inside that box is just hundreds and hundreds of receipts. And then you'd be thinking like, wow, you spend a lot of money. But everybody who knows me knows that I'm a pretty frugal person. So I'm frugal, not cheap. There's a difference. So why do I have so many receipts, right? And the reason is because this is the course of like 6 or 7 years of receipts. And that is not a very good organizational system of having one box of every receipt you've ever had that you can remember and know where they are.
Think? Huh, I don't know. Let's think about that for a minute.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So
Probably
there was
not the best.
So my tip is how to utilize the Smart Receipts app. And to be fair, it's mostly Ryan's tips because he told me to do these things and I started doing them. And it's been much more pleasant experience. Now, first, one of the things that Ryan does is, I think, key, and that is taking a picture of the receipt immediately upon receiving the receipt at wherever you get that receipt. You don't just go home, put it on your counter, go put it in your receipt box that's filled with other receipts. You take your phone out, you take a photo of that receipt, and now you're done. And in theory, you could just throw away that receipt. Now, if you're like me, you're still going to put it in the box anyway, but it allows you to have that organized immediately. So, and also if sometimes people who don't know this, if you have really old receipts, the ink just fades away.
Yeah.
And also if you put them in the wash, like leave them in your pocket or something in your pants, they also will fade away very quickly. So definitely do this. The first tip is probably the most important, but the next tip is create a list of things that you will be paying for so you don't end up forgetting. For example, if you're going to do a travel thing like we did with Scale, we know we're going to have to pay for a hotel and pay for some of the flights, or maybe even car rental or like rideshare, like Uber and Lyft and that sort of thing. We know we're going to have to do those things, so put them in the system. So once you get the information, you can then go ahead and just put it in that item. And it makes it a lot easier knowing that it's there. And you could apply this to your everyday things too.
Don't forget, because a lot of times you'll expense things, especially if you pay with your own card, and forget that, I paid for airport parking. Like a lot of people will remember the airplane itself because it's very expensive, or the hotel itself, but something like airport parking you might forget about, or other things because it's at the end of the trip, you get your car back, you're trying to get home. Those things, like, it's easy to forget, but if you have a space there, you'll remember, I needed to go back and add something in there.
And also you need to make sure you track that Cinnabon you got in the airport.
Cinnabon,
you're waiting for the
because you had the shame of sitting in the line at Cinnabon, so you might as well get your money back after you ate that.
As you're standing there in the Cinnabon line going like, why am I here? Why am I here?
Right.
Once you get it,
myself.
Yeah, once you get it, you're going to be like, this was a good decision, but now I need to keep the receipt.
Oh, well, while you're there, so you smell good like cinnamon when you get on the plane.
Yes, that's the reason you get
That's
cinnamon.
what I think about.
Exactly. Exactly. But also with the Smart Receipts, you can create expense reports that you could save for every trip you take or whatever things you need to take or create, like the whole group scene we were talking about before. Mm-hmm. You can create reports based on specific groups or your entire thing if you want to. And as in, you also, if you want to do the backups, you need to do a premium account or just do like regular exports to your system so you don't lose any of your receipts. But these are tips to use an application that once you start getting used to using it, you're going to come up with new ways to improve your experience because this is a game changer for me. I used to have a very inefficient, ineffective, unproductive. My words are better about it than you.
I'm trying to help.
Oh, okay. I like my adjectives better than yours, but okay. So my system wasn't great, but now I actually have this thing where it's organized. I know, crazy.
An app that helps you do something better. There's an app for that. It's called Smart Receipts.
There's an app for that.
There's also an app for this show, isn't there? They actually do have an app for this show.
I don't think there is.
No, somebody created that one app that one time for our show.
I mean, I think they created it, but I don't think it's updated anymore.
Is it maintained? I don't know.
Think
there could be an app for that. Well, anyways.
There is an app for that. It's called a podcast app that you use or the YouTube app that you can watch the show on. Like there's
an app for that.
Yeah,
Spotify,
exactly.
iHeartRadio, iTunes.
All of those.
We are on all of those things.
Yeah.
They're so important. All right, a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. You can join us on our Discord at tuxdigital.com/Discord, where we have a couple new Discords created out there. I'm starting to hear there's a lot of fitness people going on in the Linux community talking about, you got Wendy, you got Nate, you've got me, and other
Obviously
people.
me.
Michael, Jill, all of these people into fitness. So why not? We work out our brains all the time. Why not work out our bodies too? So go check out our Discord because we've got a fitness section there. We've got our new Minecraft server. You can go check out and hang out with people and play some Minecraft. My kids have been playing on the server for like 2 days straight. Yeah. And I got to tell you guys, I'm sorry if you joined the server. And I'm very proud of this as well. So my kids now know how to mess with the console. And so they have administrator rights in the server. And first, it was just for me to play, but then my kids saw me playing and I was testing things. So I would like give myself a sword or whatever. And I didn't think they picked up on it, but my son gets on and then he just starts doing the slash and console commands and making himself all powerful. And my daughter sees this. And so now a second laptop was set up with Minecraft and she is in the console writing little commands to make herself all powerful. I'm very proud of them, but if you come across them and they kill you because they're all powerful, that's just part of the joy of our server.
It was Ryan's fault.
Yeah.
It was my fault. Yeah. So these are some of the fun things you can learn about in joining our Discord.
And also, if you want to watch this show live, you can do that by becoming a patron of Destination Linux. In fact, when you become a patron of the show, you're actually becoming a patron of the network. So you're going to get a ton of other perks and features, not just being able to watch live, but that is a fantastic perk, of course. And if you're not able to watch it live, you still get the option to watch the unedited version. And you're definitely going to want to watch the unedited version. Now, technically, it's going to be edited a little bit because we had a little bit some technical difficulties. So I'm going to put in
just this piece. We had some technical difficulties. But we sing Baby Shark.
We were singing Baby Shark.
Did.
If you want to hear us sing Baby Shark, which to me is worth thousands.
So we're going to be taking that and providing it to patrons and letting them know that we have heard of Baby Shark for some reason. So you can join our awesome patrons by going to tuxdigital.com/contribute to get all the perks we just mentioned. Also, you get to join us in the patron-only post show, which happens every week after the show, and our amazing digital virtual stadium it's a 60,000 square foot stadium for those who are curious.
Gosh, we're rich.
It's just a massive made up virtual stadium. And you can do that by going to tuxdigital.com/contribute. You may be thinking to yourself, I'm already a patron. So what else can I get? What else can I do to participate in the awesomeness of the Tux Digital community? And that is go to the Tux Digital store and get some swag because we have tons of cool stuff. We have hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, coasters, hats, stickers, and so much more, including things that Jill drops onto the microphone. And
yeah, Jill dropped the mic.
Oh my God.
What happened, so you guys know, those not watching the video, is Jill showed her own merch, by the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then dropped the mic, as if saying, like you would buy any of Michael and Ryan's crap, just buy my stuff.
That's exactly how I interpreted it as well, Ryan.
Yes,
so wonderful description.
Did that on purpose.
But you can get all the cool stuff that is available at the store, including the amazing Jill stuff, the 33% more Jill, because everyone wants 33% more Jill, obviously. So go to tuxdigital.com/store.
And make sure to check out all our incredible shows here on Tux Digital. We have the Pseudo Show, This Week in Linux, the DOS Geek Channel, Linux Out Loud, Hardware Addicts, GameSphere, and our virtual Linux user group, Linux Saloon. And head to tuxdigital.com and subscribe to all these great shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching in the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce. Everybody, have a great week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone. Keep
Baby
those
shark,
pangolins marching.
Baby
See you next
shark.
week.
Jill,
That's a patron exclusive.
Shark. That's patron only exclusive. Jill.
Exactly. It's a patron exclusive, Jill.
We're going to NFT our Baby Shark video.